What's going on, YouTube? Thomas L here. Since today is the birthday of legendary Hollywood actor Paul Newman, I decided to do my top 10 favorite Paul Newman movies. Because, the guy was a legend. He's been in the game since around the 30s and 40s. He sadly passed away in 2008, but at the hype of, when he was around, he was really amazing at the hype of his career. And he's been in a lot of good stuff, in the past decade. So that being said, here's my 10 favorite Paul Newman movies. Coming in at number 10 is The Drowning Pool. Now, this is actually a sequel to a 1966 film called Hopper that Paul Newman starred in. The first film was pretty decent, but the sequel I think is even better. In it, edgy detective Lil Hopper, played by Newman, is hired by an old flame named Iris, who is being blackmailed about an affair she says never happened. So he travels down to Louisiana to investigate, but things take a turn for the worse when her mother-in-law is killed. So yeah, this one's a real classic one. The movie got released in. When did it get released in? It got released in 1975. And besides Newman, also starred people like Melanie Griffith, Joanne Woodard, Murray Hamilton. Some really good castmates. Too bad Paul Newman never did other films in the Hopper universe. To be honest, it probably could have had been a Paul Newman's Dirty Harry or Paul Newman's Die Hard or something like that. But he played the character pretty well, and if you guys haven't seen The Drowning Pool or the original Hopper, definitely check those out because those are really good mystery films. And I gotta say, if Hollywood ever announces that they'll make a Hopper reboot, like whether it be a reboot movie or reboot series, I'm down to see another one. It'll be hard for any actor to top Paul Newman, but we'll see what happens there. Coming in at number 9 is The Sting. Now, this, of course, paired both Robert Redford and Paul Newman together. These two worked together really perfectly back in the days. In it, it's about con man Johnny Hooker, played by Robert Redford, who teams up with a old pro named Henry Gandorf, played by Newman, to take revenge on the ruthless crime boss responsible. And the villain here is Doyle Lanigan, played by Robert Shaw. This is a classic. It's a classic caper film. Newman and Redford both had good chemistry with one another. This even scored a Best Picture nomination at the Oscars. And it was also directed by George Roy Hill. Good little film. If you guys haven't seen this thing, definitely give this one a go. Alright, coming in at number 8 is Nobody's Fool. Now, this is not to be confused with that recent Tyler Perry and Tiffany Haddish movie that just got released. This is a different Nobody's Fool. Of course, this one starred Paul Newman as well as Bruce Willis. Let me see what else was on. Melanie Griffith was also in this. You had the great Jessica Tandy. Really good cast. I believe Paul Newman scored an Oscar nomination for this, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this is a really good film. Paul Newman is probably one of his best performances he's given in years. In it, Paul Newman plays a guy named Donald Sully Sullivan, who is an expert at avoiding adult responsibilities at age 6. Then, at age 60, he divides all his time between a local bar and a construction job. And he also has to deal with his estranged son, played by Dylan Walsh, who arrives in town and with him a son of his own and a sob story about his like failed marriage and all that. This is a really fantastic movie. I mean, it was directed by Robert Benton. He did a really good job. I mean, the movie got released in 1994, and it's definitely a film worth checking out. I gotta double check to see if Paul Newman scored an Oscar nomination for this, because if he didn't, that's definitely a snub, because this is definitely like one of his best performances given. So, I mean, if you guys never seen Nobody's Fool, check it out. It's another good Paul Newman movie worth checking out. Coming in at number 7 is probably one of my favorite hockey movies, and that is Slapshot. I simply love Slapshot. It's a really classic hockey movie. It got released in 1977, and it's a hockey movie that still gets talked about today. I mean, Paul Newman pretty much plays the coach of a hockey team, and Paul Newman was really good in this. The guy's more known for dramatic and action crime films, but it was always cool to see Paul Newman in like a comedic film like this, and he was really good. I mean, this movie it's really hysterical. It has some good actors in it. They also did a sequel which just was awful. The first Slapshot is where it's at. If you guys never seen Slapshot, if you also want a good hockey movie to check out, give Slapshot a go. It's a classic. Coming in at number 7 is coming in at number 6, my bad. Coming in at number 6 is The Verdict. Now, this is a really classic one. I mean, The Verdict stars Paul Newman with legendary actress Charlotte Rampling. And in it, Paul Newman plays a Boston lawyer named Frank Galvin who takes his face out of the shot glass for one last shot at redemption and, take a medical case against a powerful attorney named Edward Concannon. The Verdict is a classic courtroom film. I mean, I really thought Paul Newman in this was really good. Charlotte Rampling was incredible in this. You also had people like Jack Warden. The always great James Mason. The film was, of course, directed by the great Sidney Lumet. And it also scored a few Oscar nominations back in the days as well. It's a classic movie. It's a really good court case film. It's a really good legal drama. Definitely check out The Verdict. It's really good. Coming in at number 5 is a disaster classic, and that is Towering Inferno. I mean, this is a real classic disaster movie that got released in the 70s. And the cast in this is outstanding. I mean, besides Paul Newman, a few other people in this included the likes of Steve McQueen, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Fred Astaire, O.J. Simpson. Literally, O.J. Simpson was in this. I mean, way before, the famous case, like before the famous murder case and all that, O.J. Simpson had a role as a security guard in the Towering Inferno. Take that with a grain of salt. Of course, this was way before, the 90s and all. Anyway, the Towering Inferno is a classic disaster movie. Good cast. It scored a few Oscar nominations. I mean, if you guys want to check out a really amazing disaster movie that got released in the 70s, give Towering Inferno a go. It's a really good one. All right, coming in at number 4 is The Hustler. Now, The Hustler is a really classic caper film. I mean, the Hustler, you had the likes of Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason, who was at the hype of his game thanks to the Honeymooners back in the days. The Hustler this is a really classic one. I mean, in it, it's about pool sharks travel from one seedy playing room to another, and it leads him to a potentially life-changing showdown with a legendary Minnesota Fats. And it's also set in the world of smoke-filled halls and all. The Hustler is really good. I mean, it's pretty, there's so many sports movies, like there's hockey movies, there's so many football movies and all. There's barely any pool movies. And this is a really good pool movie. Of course, they did a sequel to this that I'm going to talk about here in a bit. But The Hustler is a classic one. I mean, it got released in 1961. And besides Newman and Gleason, you also had Piper Laurie, Jake LaMotta, who's, of course, the famous boxer that Robert De Niro portrayed. The great George C. Scott was in this. Such a fantastic movie. Definitely check out The Hustler. I think you'll appreciate it. All right, coming in at number... Where am I? Yeah, coming in at number 3 is pretty much the follow-up to The Hustler, and that is The Color of Money. Now, this paired both Paul Newman with a very young Tom Cruise. The Hustler is a really good one. I mean, in it, Paul Newman reprised his role as Eddie Felson, and he decides he wants to return to the gang by taking a pupa, and so he meets a talented but green Vincent Laurel, played by Tom Cruise, and proposes a partnership with him. The Color of Money, I gotta say, it's actually even better than The Hustler. Lots of people probably prefer The Hustler over Color Money, but I kind of like Color Money a little more. I mean, it of course had a very young Tom Cruise, way before he did Mission Impossible and that. Color Money is a really good one. I mean, the movie actually got released in 1986, and I think the movie still holds up today. It's a really good pool-based film. Definitely check out The Color Money. It's a classic. All right, coming in at number 2 is another Robert Redford and Paul Newman movie, and that is a classic, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I mean, this is a classic Western. Probably one of the best Western movies of all time. I mean, it paired both, the greats Paul Newman and Robert Redford. I mean, I'm gonna get off subject here, but for all you Pokemon fans, do you know those other two Team Rocket duos, Butch and Cassidy, that are kind of rivals to Jesse James? Get this. Those two characters are actually named after these Western characters, Butch and Cassidy. So there's a little Pokemon tip for you there. Anyway, back to the movie now. Butch and Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Robert Redford and Paul Newman, I thought was both really good here. The movie was also directed by George Roy Hill, who also did The Sting. Definitely, I mean, I'm not like the biggest Western guy, but Butch and Cassidy is definitely one of my favorite Western movies out there. I actually, not so long ago, I did my 10 favorite Robert Redford movies, and this film was actually in that list as well. I mean, can't help it. It's a classic movie. Good chemistry between the two casts. Good direction. Definitely check out Butch and Cassidy and the Sundance Kid if you haven't. It's a really good one. I think they also did a sequel years after, but the sequel wasn't all that great. The first film is the best. All right. Now, most people will probably have a Butch Cassidy as a number 1 favorite. My number 1 is not Butch and Cassidy. My number 1 favorite Paul Newman movie ever is Cool Hand Luke. I mean, Cool Hand Luke is a movie they show a lot of time on TCM or so they'll show this on TV a whole lot of times. I believe Paul Newman scored an Oscar nomination for this. I gotta double check, but I mean the whole movie pretty much takes place in prison, and it's about a criminal Luke Jackson, played by Newman, who is sentenced to 2 years in a Florida prison farm. And he doesn't play by the rules of either the sadistic warden, played by Strawer Martin, or the yard's resident heavy dragline, played by the late great George Kennedy. So I mean, this is a really classic film. Definitely, it's pretty much one of Paul Newman's best performances. I mean, this is actually one of Newman's earliest roles. I mean, he was like a hot draw back in the '60s and all. I mean, let me put it this way: he was like the Ryan Gosling and Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans of that era. I'll just put it there that way. And I mean, the movie got released in. When did it get released again? Oh yeah, got released in 1967, and it was directed by the great Stuart Rosenberg. George Kennedy was really good in this. You also had Joy Harmon. Then the late great Dennis Hopper was great in this. Even had Joy Van Fleet, the late great Harry Dean Stanton. Really good cast and good performances. I mean, this was the Shawshank Redemption of that era. I mean, of course, one of the best prison movies of all time is Shawshank Redemption. Cool Hand Luke is probably the second best. I mean, if you guys never seen Cool Hand Luke, it's definitely another Paul Newman movie worth checking out. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me do the quick rundown. Number 10, The Drowning Pool. 9, The Sting. 8, Nobody's Fool. 7, Slapshot. 6, The Verdict. 5, The Towering Inferno. 4, The Hustler. 3, The Color of Money. 2, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. 1, Cool Hand Luke. Now, Paul Newman's been in loads of other stuff. Let me pull up his resume. He actually had a really good resume when he was around. Okay. He was also in Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks. He was in Cars, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. That's a classic, which has Elizabeth Taylor in it. The movie HUD, Exodus. He was in the movie Twilight, not to be confused with Catherine Hardwicke's Twilight. This Twilight got released in 1998. He was also in Torn Curtain, the Nicholas Sparks adaptation of Message in a Bottle with Kevin Costner was really good. Harry and Son he was in. He was in loads of stuff back in the days. But let me leave with you guys. What are some of your favorite Paul Newman movies? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This here is Thomas L. signing off.